I have been a Swiftie since 2006. I feel like I grew up with Taylor. We're both Pennsylvania girls. We're kind of around the same age. I'm a little older than her. But I just feel like we really grew up together and I've followed her career. Went to the tours. I really just have always felt like a connection with her and her music and her lyrics. And so I've been wanting to do something in the Taylor realm for a while. I love pop culture. I love creating, as we talked about, like these fun books that have different elements to them. And yeah, a coffee table book was definitely on my dream of dreams bucket list. What's interesting is how that deal came about because I had been shopping another Taylor project that is not the Bake It Off book, that is not the Chronicles book. I can't share what that one is, but that one will be coming out next year. But I was shopping that around in like let's say like January of 2024 maybe. Um, and was getting no bites. And it was about 6 months on sub. No one was biting on it. And I was like determined to do a Taylor book. And that's when I got the idea for Bake It Off. And so I wrote that proposal in like 24 hours. I was like, let's go. I ended up going on sub with that, sold that book very quickly, and it had a pretty quick turnaround. The other Taylor book though was still kind of in the realm, and a publisher that had that book reached out to me, the publisher of the Chronicles book, and they were like, "Hey, we like this other proposal. We also have this other book project if you would be interested, and we'd love to have a conversation about it." So it was really like these rejections of this one other book that led to the Chronicles book. And again, it was kind of like right place, right time. Also a little bit of not giving up because we didn't pull that book. It was still out there and that publisher did have it and they remembered me. And so it ended up leading to not only the book deal for the Chronicles book, but also this other book that comes out next year as well. So it was pretty cool. And the really fun thing about the Chronicles book is, yes, complete dream of dream book, like coffee table book. I actually have it. I have one copy here now. It's like so beautiful, so stunning. It is absolutely like just completely, there's illustrations, there's photos. When they came to me, they were like, we want this. They kind of had a vision for it, right? Because it was their project, their idea. And I was like, listen, this is great. Like, I get it. They wanted to do like a history of her and, era by era. And I'm like, okay, that sounds great. But I'm like, as a fan, how can we infuse more into this or some unique angle that I feel the fans will really appreciate and really love? Because I feel like a full autobiographical or a biography essentially is great, but I want there to be some sort of kind of anchoring into it. And luckily they let me run with it. Like they let me run with pretty much this vision. So my vision for it was taking the lens of her career, her life, but through this lens of kindness and the things that she's done all along the way that maybe even people didn't realize. I think when you look at her career, I think it's interesting because a lot of people see, probably because of social media, 1989 and after is kind of like what's more online, like what you can find a lot of. But what they don't realize is so much of her early career, this is who she always was, her kindness and the way that she gave back and certain things that she did. And so I really wanted to explore that and use that as the thread, if you will, through the entire book. And so that was really fun to do. I'm glad they allowed me to take that angle because I feel like it sets it apart. There's some really fun, interesting tidbits. I was able to put Easter eggs in there. I was able to kind of infuse a lot of really some never before seen photos. There's some Easter eggs from videos. I mean, I went a little over the top in some of my sourcing and the way that I was able to put some of those elements in there. So it was actually really fun being able to work on both of these like in a similar time frame because I had so much research, right? Like I had all this research from the Chronicles book and that I was able to infuse into the Bake It Off book. So the Bake It Off book is it's, puns and recipes based on Taylor Swift, songs, her love of baking. It also goes way back. I know we've seen like the Pop-Tarts and her recent sourdough obsession, but it really goes back as far as her when she got her start with her debut album. She would take cookies to the different radio stations when she did radio tours, and that was always, and they were homemade cookies, and she would always ask even for feedback. She was always like, yeah, let me know, like I'm always interested in trying different things. And so I wanted to infuse that. I think I also love cooking. I've written cookbooks before. I did have my friend Kristen Richards of Front Porch Bakery. She helped write the recipes because it was such a bit of an intense deadline. So I needed to call the experts for recipe development. But I love baking and I had so much fun with it. There's just so many puns, so many things to lean into. There's so many references with food and baking that she's had over the years. So I got to put that all into that book. And actually that book, there's so many Easter eggs that the publisher asked me if I would make a key for the back of the book so that people could see, because they were like, Lindsey, this is so many, but I had so much fun with it. So in the book, a couple of my favorite ones that I think are fun because of maybe the story or of course we have her chai recipe, and I made those ones vegan and gluten-free. So we kind of took her original recipe and tweaked it a bit so that it's vegan and gluten-free so everyone can enjoy. So that was kind of something we did there. The Pop-Tarts, of course, have become a bit infamous with her, so we had to include those. But a couple fun ones. There's one called You're on Your Own Kids cereal bars. And it's funny because Kristen was kind of recipe developing while I was coming up with the concepts, writing the headers and doing the shoots and kind of like the creative part of the book. And she came back to me and she used honey nut Cheerios in them. And I was like, okay, I was hoping was something a little bit brighter. And I was going to go back to her and say like, maybe like Fruity Pebbles or maybe like Fruit Loops or something that is colorful, because I feel like I want this book to be a bit colorful. But then I was watching interviews of her because I was doing all this research, and in an interview she said, they were like, what's your favorite cereal? And she said Honey Nut Cheerios. And I was like, well, there you go. So we kept it because I was like, yeah, it's not a bright colorful bar, but you can make it bright if you want to add like some icing or sprinkles, but it stays true to something that Taylor had said in an interview. So things like that were really, really fun. I also have one of my favorites. I just made it yesterday, actually, because I shot a little video for it, is the You Need to Calm Down pool cups. And those were really fun because I was so inspired by the You Need to Calm Down music video and just seeing like her in that pool. And so I wanted to mimic the pool cups to look like her in that pool. And so I used it with the Jello. I had a rimmed glass that had the bright pink color sprinkles that matched kind of the aesthetics. And then we put a little peach ring with a gummy bear in it to represent her like on the float in the pool. So it was stuff like that I got to have really fun with visuals, and also the, kind of getting creative and looking at her, everything from a music video to an interview, and kind of taking inspiration from that and making something really fun and delicious.